month, especially during this month. And that is obviously not to say that we should not have this relationship outside of this month, but there undoubtedly is a special sort of emphasis, whether it's in the recitation, and we see that there's recommendations for recitation of the Quran more during the holy month and so on and so forth. But when we look at the Quran and we look at the message of the Quran itself is defining for us or creating this connection for us. So the first verse that we have that we'd like to, inshallah, shed some light on or think about is verse number 185 from Surah Baqarah. So this verse is a verse that obviously, talks about the holy month of Ramadan, and that's why I thought that this is a good place to start. Usually, every year when this month comes, um, this is at least for myself personally, this is a place where I go back and try to look at it again. There's also a beautiful khutbah or sermon, if you will, from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is also just as a reference, good place to look at. So we're looking at Surah Baqarah, which is Surah number 2, verse number 185, 185. شهر أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. So it's talking about the holy month of Ramadan, Shahr Ramadan, the one in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran down. Now, sent the Quran down. And in what form did he send it down? Hudan linnas. This Quran that was sent down to you and I, sent down in this world, sent down to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is supposed to be a guide, a form of guidance. Hudan linnas. Huda means guidance. It's for all people. It's not just for the mu'mineen. It's not just for the Muslimin. It's not for a specific group of it. It's hudan linnas. It's for the entire humankind, mankind. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He's sending the Quran, this is His purpose with sending the Quran, that this will guide people. وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ, and clear signs of guidance and furqan. Furqan generally, as you know, is first of all one of the titles of the Quran as well. The Quran is known as the Furqan. It's one of the names of the Quran. But essentially, what it means is that ability to distinguish, the distinguishing factor, furqan, and even in Urdu, if you look, the farq, right? So it's similar, similar sort of root words. Furqan is that ability to distinguish, and generally in this context, is the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. So this is our criteria. This Quran is what's gonna give us our criteria to be able to distinguish between right and wrong. And then the last part says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. So whoever of you witnesses this month or reaches this month, then they should fast in this month. Now, one of the things that's important, and there's many other verses like this that talk about, inshallah, we'll perhaps get to some of them in this session itself. But there's many other verses that talk about the Quran being a guidance, or the Quran being a form of mercy, or the Quran being good news for the mu'mineen and the Muslimin and the people in general. One thing that's usually that's worth thinking about is if I read the Quran, right? Alhamdulillah, I read the Quran, I try to read it daily. Okay, I don't get around to it. I try to read it once a month, once a week, once, whatever it might be. So I try to incorporate that. So let's take the best case scenario for the one who is, alhamdulillah, able to read it more often, right? Whether it's, one page a day or 50 verses a day or whichever one it might be. If there's someone who's able to do that, is able to read that, now the question for them, right, for someone who is not even able to get around to incorporate the Quran in their schedule, the question perhaps doesn't even apply to them. Because if you don't even seek the guidance, then how are you going to get the guidance? Right? So it's not just that by me having the Quran in my house, or me having the Quran in my pocket, or me having the Quran on my phone, or me having the Quran on my bookshelf, for example, that this will all of a sudden, will be some form of guidance for me, that this is what's going to protect me through my life just by having a Quran, just by going and buying a Quran and placing it. That's obvious that that is not the point of the Quran. And when it talks about the Quran being a form of guidance, that is not what it means. So reading the Quran. Now, a lot of times, I might be someone who is reading the Quran and who is, reading one page of the Quran every day. Or, for example, I've gone through the effort of memorizing. Okay, I haven't memorized a lot, but I've memorized, at least the short surahs. Actually, that's probably a good place to start because most of us, if not all of us, have short surahs memorized, at least the ones that we recite in our namaz, in our daily namaz. So I have that memorized. I have that um, not just memorized, but I recite that as well. Or for someone who recites, a page a day or whichever one it might be. Now, is it the case? Do I feel that what the Quran is promising me? The Quran is saying that, listen, this Quran is a form of guidance for the people. I am reciting the Quran on a daily basis, whether it's in the namaz or outside of that, right? At the very least, in the namaz, in the daily namaz, in the daily salat. I'm reading the Quran. I have some sort of interaction with the Quran on a daily basis. Do I feel the guidance of the Quran? Do I feel like this is a mercy, form of mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon me? Do I feel that this is something like good news for me? Right? So these are things that just saying it is not enough. Just saying that, yes, this Quran is the biggest of the blessings and it's a form of guidance. And, if I'm talking to someone who doesn't believe in the Quran, for example, you guys don't have a book like this. This Quran is the biggest form of guidance for me. It's the biggest mercy for me. It's the biggest. So it's more, raising, I don't know, slogans and sha'r and that kind of stuff. But if someone were to come and ask me, this Quran that you talk about, that you claim that the Quran itself describes it as good news and glad tidings and mercy and all of that good stuff, where is that? Do you see that in your life? Do you feel that in your life? Um, where is this that this claim of yours reflects in your life? And this is an important point for you and I to kind of think about, in terms of what exactly does this mean? Actually do I actually see these blessings in my life? Is it actually there? Do I feel it, or is it just I just kind of look the other way and say, yes, if the Quran is saying it must be there, even if I don't see it. So the important point over here is that this form of guidance, these blessings of the Quran are not in the form of causality. Causality, the way I mean it is that you I don't know, say, bring a lighter and a paper together, the paper will burn, right? There's nothing stopping it. The paper comes near the fire and it burns. The Quran comes near me and it guides me. Is that how it works? Is there that sort of a causality that I recite one verse and it guides me? The answer is that yes, every sort of interaction with the Quran is a blessing, does have rewards. But, so if I recite a verse of the Quran, there's no doubt that it has its rewards and it has its blessings. There's no doubt about that. But does it all of a sudden become the guiding light for me? Does it all of a sudden become the biggest form of mercy for me? right? These are the things that I need to sort of think about a little more. And the reality is that these things, because it's the human interacting with the Quran, the Quran is a form of guidance for the people, is a form of mercy for the people. So it's talking about people. And the way we are, one of the biggest blessings, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing us with the existence and whatnot, one of the biggest blessings that He's blessed us with is the intellect. And the way He's designed the system, the way He's designed everything, um, is that a person needs to use their intellect. A person needs to engage their mind. A person needs to engage their intellect to be able to benefit from these sort of blessings. A person who does not use their intellect, even though on the outside, even though you might be looking at you might be looking at their life, and you're like, this person prays, this person, I don't know, does all the other obligations, but is that enough? And the answer is, that is why the answer is, it's good, but it's not enough. It might get me limited rewards, but it won't get me the true rewards that I'm looking for. The famous hadith from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about this. It says, "Innama al-a'malu binniyat," that the worth of the actions is through the intentions. There's other traditions or hadith that say, "Niyatul mu'min afdal min amalihi," that the niyyah, the intention of a mu'min, is better than their actions. This is not saying, right? Sometimes we go to the other extreme. This is not by any means saying that as long as you have the intention, right? Oh yes, I love Allah and He knows I love Him, so I don't need to pray. This is not what they're saying. This is not what this means. What it means is, if you're gonna give more emphasis to something, if you want to be able to really truly benefit from the action, then this is where you need to focus on. This is what you need to work on. You need to work on the intention. And this is not just for forms of worship. This is for anything that I might do in life. This is if I want to help someone, what is my intention? And do I kind of want people to find out that um, this is someone who helps people? If I volunteer for something, if I volunteer in the masjid, if I volunteer for an initiative, if I volunteer for any sort of Islamic work, what is my intention? Do I somewhere somehow want some sort of recognition? If I don't have that recognition, will that be the end of my sort of volunteering career? So these kind of things, like what exactly is behind why I'm doing things. Anyways, so that because the niyyah is important, because the intention is important, where does the intention come from? It comes from within me. It comes from whatever my understanding of something might be. That is where the intention also roots from. So point being this, that if I want to be able to interact with the Quran in a way where it becomes a form of guidance for me, where it starts you know um, talking to me, it starts clarifying things for me. And when I say talking to me, obviously not in the physical sense, but let me give you an example of a person who where we can sort of understand what kind of a miracle this book is. We should not look at this as just any other book. Yes, okay, the other book I have, the author is William Shakespeare, and this book that I have, the author is God. Okay, they're both books. They both have content in there. They both have some sort of eloquence in there. Yes, the Quran has more eloquence. Yes, the Quran has maybe deeper meanings, but at the end of the day, they're both books. That is not how it is. The words of the Quran, the reality of the Quran is beyond just a book, just a physical thing. It has a reality um, that goes beyond this, because these words, if you will, are just sort of manifested at a lower level, or manifestations at a lower level of the realities that exist in the Lawh Mahfuz, or in existence in general. So Well, the example I wanted to give is there was a person, you might have heard of him. There was a person called Kazim Karbalai. He used to live in Qom, and basically he was an illiterate person, and he used to, I think, work in the farms and whatnot. And basically, he was a very pious and very sincere person. One day, he goes to sleep, dreams, something like that. He wakes up and he basically knows the Quran, right? There's some sort of miracle that happened. There's some sort of special blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that came down. And he, the next day, knows the Quran. He sees the Quran. He understands the Quran. This is a person who doesn't know how to read, who doesn't know how to write, who works in the farms, right? But sincere person, very pure person, very pious person. And eventually, what happened is, people started finding out, and people started seeing how did this happen. And sometimes they would give him text. They would give him text which was mixed. So there was some regular words or sentences and whatnot, but within that text there were verses of the Quran as well. And when they would put it in front of him, he would be able to point out, although he can't read, he would be able to point out which one of the lines are the Quran. And when they asked him, he said that these words have nur, they have light. So understanding that it's not just any of the Quran. When the Quran says that this is a form of guidance, I will not get that guidance. I will not get that mercy. I will not get those benefits from the Quran by just having a Quran in my house. Having the Quran, keeping it accessible, reading it. Now, this is something that I've mentioned many times. So, if you've heard it before, I apologize, but it's really important as a reminder, first and foremost for myself and for anyone else who can benefit from it. So when we're looking at the Quran, there's various sort of levels that we can have a relationship with the Quran, right? We have the Quran. I bought the Quran. Okay, it's my Quran. There, perhaps, there's some sort of relationship with the Quran. Now, I have the Quran at home. Um, Sorry, can you still hear me? My laptop just said that my connection is unstable.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. So my relationship with the Quran, I bought a Quran. Okay, the relationship starts there, but now I read it once in a while. Okay, so that's one step, right? I'm reading the Quran, but just by reading the Quran, especially for people like us who don't understand, or at least most of us don't understand the language. Okay, it kind of feels good, right, to read the Quran, but if I don't know what I'm talking about, if I don't know what I'm reading, how's it ever gonna help me in any way? Again, I want to clarify that yes, the rewards are there, but what's in store is much greater rewards, right? So the rewards for reciting it are there. So now I recite the Quran, but I don't really understand anything. That's one level of relationship with the Quran. It's good, it's not enough perhaps. The second level would be at least I understand the words that I'm reading, right? So perhaps seeking help from a translation, whether it's the Urdu translation or the English translation, whatever language. So now I'm reading the Quran and I'm reading the translation, so I'm kind of understanding a little bit more. At least I'm getting a sense of what the Quran is trying to say. Now, most of you and most of us have probably used a translation before, and we know that sometimes the words don't always match, right? It doesn't always, it's just not clear. But anyways, that's okay. Um, so now I'm doing the translation. Okay, now I just read the Quran and I know the translation, which is a step better, but I don't know the context of things. I don't know the deeper meaning of things. Perhaps reading of tafsir, or joining a class that does a tafsir, or some sort of deeper sort of meanings of the Quran, that would take me a next step. So now I'm building upon this relationship. I'm building upon this relationship. Then there's, as the Quran itself pushes us towards contemplation and tafakkur and tadabbur. So there's so many of these verses, right, that describe the Quran itself describes itself as a form of guidance, a form of clear signs, form of mercy, form of all of good news, and so on and so forth. So many of the different. So what we're talking about is how do I actually reap those benefits? How do I get to those benefits? And the answer is basically that we need to try building the relationship beyond just a superficial one, just like with people. So I recite it, do the translation, perhaps maybe do some deeper meaning, whether tafsir or not. I'm not saying this is essential. So the tafsir part you can still skip, but reciting the the um, the translation where I at least understand the words, then the important step is the contemplation, being able to put two and two together, be able to use the Quran as the information in the Quran, the knowledge in the Quran as building blocks for myself to be able to move further with it. There's an example that I usually give, and I'll just to kind of move on, I'll quickly give the same example to sort of show what we mean by using the Quran to as basic building blocks to reach a conclusion, or putting two and two together, or connecting the dots, whatever you want to call it. So in Surah Hamd, we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Oh Allah, it is only you who we worship, and it is only you who we seek help from. So this is something that I'm repeating to God every time I'm praying, repeating to God every time I'm praying. And um, so that's on one side, right? So I'm telling God, it is only you, trust me, it's only you who I worship, it is only you who I seek help from. So that's one thing. On the other hand, if one of my friends comes and tells me, I love you, you're my best friend, I really like you, and so on and so forth, and then I find out that the same person goes and tells other people that they can't stand me, right? So I see some sort of hypocrisy in their words, in the way they carry themselves. And what do I usually do when that happens? That doesn't make me very happy. So either I confront them, or I'm not friends with them, or at the very least, if I don't trust them like that. So I know that this hypocrisy is a bad thing. Now, coming back, the first piece of information was I'm saying إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. The second piece of information is that if I see hypocrisy in life, if people tell me one thing but do another thing, do another, I don't like it. It doesn't feel good to me, especially if it has to do with me. So now I know hypocrisy is bad, and I'm saying this one thing. Now the question for me, myself, would be, is there any hypocrisy in what I'm saying? I keep telling God, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Oh Allah, it is only you who I worship. Oh Allah, it is only you who I seek help from. Now I go into my life. What if Allah is sitting there and He hears me say this 10 times a day? And then He says, okay, He says this in His namaz, but then He doesn't really follow anything I tell Him. So he's telling me he worships me. He must know that it's more than just praying namaz. Worship me means submits to me, means submits to what I want, not what he wants himself, or not what the society wants, or not what the norms of the society wants, or not what his friends want, or not anything else, but what I want. This is what submission to me means. This is what worshiping me means. But this person, when I look at their life, I don't see any of that. Or I don't see enough of that, at least. All I see is, yeah, they keep saying, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. But when it comes to making choices in life, they look at, the easier way out. When it comes to making decisions in life, they look at what their preferences are. When it comes to being able to or they come face to face with a scenario or a circumstance where they could sin, they fall prey to, or fall victim to, their own carnal desires. So they actually worship their own desires as opposed to worshiping me. But they keep saying, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. So practically speaking, I'm a person who's saying I worship you, but there's absolutely no role of Allah, of Allah's will, of what He wants, of what He expects from me in my life. So something like this will not be able to get me to the depth of the benefits of the Quran. For example, if we're talking about the Quran, right? So إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So what I was talking about is the basic building blocks. So I know I say this, I say إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, it is only who I worship. I know that if someone else is hypocritical towards me, I would not like it, yet I am hypocritical with what I'm saying. So this should be a red flag for me, right? If I don't appreciate it, perhaps God does not appreciate it either. So it's a red flag for me to try to improve myself, to try to move in a direction where I can take care of this red flag. This is what I mean by basic building blocks. This is what I mean by some level of contemplation. You don't need to be, I don't need to be some sort of, someone who has like complete knowledge of all the verses of the Quran, all the history of the Quran, that I set the minimum as so high that it becomes overwhelming for me and I'm not able to benefit at all. So that is something that's important for me to be able to um, um, uh, move in a direction where I can benefit from the Quran. So we were talking about recitation of the Quran, translation of the Quran, perhaps, maybe a tafsir or something for a deeper meaning and context of the Quran, but then the contemplation. The contemplation is a must, and it is the contemplation, if it's done properly, comes hand in hand with the action, because the contemplation deals with what? Deals with my mind, deals with my thinking, deals with my intelligence, deal with my brain. And this is what is the distinguishing factor between us and animals, right? It's the intellect. And Allah gave us the intellect and He designed it in a way that if I use the intellect, if I use the intellect, it pushes that whatever I'm contemplating about, whatever I'm thinking about, it raises these flags in my mind. And that is what would sort of push me towards any sort of belief, any sort of certainty, any sort of chance to push me towards action. So these are the various different levels where we can understand that if I want to look at verses like this, like verse number 185 of Surah Baqarah, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان, right? That the holy month of Ramadan, the one in which the Quran was sent down as a form of guidance for the people and clear signs of guidance and furqan. Another point before I continue with what we were talking about, just one more point that comes to sort of mind over here is شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. This is the month in which the Quran was revealed. Now, when we look at the history of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or how the Quran was sent down, the Quran was sent down through the course of 23 years, right? From when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his bi'sat, or when he apparently at least became the prophet, till when the Quran was completed, right before, a little before when he left this world. So this is 23 years we're talking about of the Quran being sent down step by step by step. But over here it's saying Shahr Ramadan. It was in the holy month that the Quran was sent down. So for this, what the scholars of the Quran say is that the Quran was sent down in two different ways. There was one that was sent down in one instance, it was instantaneous, and the other one was more more in sequence or in steps. And the one that was sent down in one sort of go was sent down on the heart of the Holy Prophet, on the qalb of the Holy Prophet, and that is perhaps what happened during the holy month of Ramadan. But other than that, when the verses were actually revealed for the people, revealed in the other sense, in the tadriji sense, or in the step by step or sequential sense, that is what was through the course of 23 years. So anyways, so this is something we've understood, that this guidance that we're looking for is not something, or the guidance that the Quran is, or it's promising that it is, is not something that just by, having the Quran in my room or just, flipping through the pages or just reading the pages, that all of a sudden this will be something that, it'll be a form of guidance. Although I must say over here that it is, yes, these smaller things, right? Just reciting the Quran, just reciting the Arabic can help me, can give me that extra sort of push through the blessings of Allah, because I've submitted level number one, that He will give me the tawfiq, He will give me the blessings to be able to understand level number two better, push me towards level number three better, push me towards level number four better. So it's never the case that it's completely useless. Like some people might say, okay, you know what? Great, thanks. I was finally reading the Quran, and now you're telling me that there's 6 steps, and I don't have time for that. I will never be able to reach that. So there you go. I'm just, it's just not for me. And what I would say is no, that is not the case. It is for everyone, and it's, if for mankind it is for everyone. Yes, perhaps, instead of doing one entire page, okay, I can do half a page. Instead of doing half a page, I can do one verse, whatever it might be. But inshallah, if I don't have time for contemplation right now, if I don't have time for translation, if I don't have time for tafsir, that's okay. I just recite what I can, and then inshallah, keep that in mind. My intention is to be able to go to step 2, 3, and 4. And inshallah, just that recitation will bring about more blessings to give me the tawfiq to be able to do step 3, 4, and 5. But it will rarely ever be the case that, I jump from step 1 to 5. So these are steps that I need to go through. So just wanted to clarify that. Now, some other verses that talk about a similar kind of concept. If you look at the same surah, Surah Baqarah, which is the second surah, verses 2 through 5, the Alif Lam Mim, which is verse number 1, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, that this is the book that there is no doubt in. It's a form of guidance for the muttaqin. See, same word, it's guidance for the muttaqin. So over there in the previous verse, it says هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ, that it's guidance for the people. Now here it's a little more specific. It's saying it's guidance for the muttaqin. Now this should be a red flag for me, saying that, well, it's a guidance for the muttaqin. Am I one of those muttaqin? Am I someone who can benefit from this, who can come into the scope of, being guided by the Quran? And I continue reading. Verse number 3. Who are these muttaqin, O Allah? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. These are the ones who have faith, who believe in the unseen. Number 1. وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, and they establish prayer, not just do salat, but they establish prayer. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and the third one over here is that they give in the way of Allah from what we have provided them. So again, seeing how this guidance of the Quran is not something just like any other book. I could be the worst person in the world, and I go study physics, I go study, math, I go study biology, I go study all these different subjects, and yeah, I do become a teacher, I do become a journalist, I do become an engineer, I do become a doctor, I do become whatever, a lawyer, whatever it is that I want to do. And that has nothing to do with me being, a quote unquote good person. I could be a bad person, but still become a good engineer. I could be a bad person, but still become a good doctor. I could be a bad person, still become a good, I don't know, journalist or whatever it might be. But over here, it's a little deeper than that. It's a little deeper than that. For me to be able to become for me to be able to benefit from the guidance, for me to be able to truly benefit from this book, right? This is where this book is different from other books. For me to be able to benefit from this book, there are prerequisites, because this is hudan lil muttaqin. Who are the muttaqin? So I need to now start sort of building on these things in my life. Yu'minuna bil ghayb, they believe in the unseen. Believe in the, yeah, even I believe in Allah. Yes, seeing it and um, and feeling it and doing it are two different things. They're just different levels perhaps of the same thing. So pushing myself to go deeper and deeper. What does it mean that I believe in the unseen, right? Do I act like I believe in the unseen? Does my life reflect that I believe in the unseen? So that's when yuqimuna salat is establishing the prayer. So praying, just doing namaz is one thing. Establishing perhaps means that I not only pray myself, but I bring others to pray, that I create environment where namaz is something that's being pushed forward, that is being encouraged, whether it's by building a masjid, whether it's by setting schedules at my company, setting schedules at my school, setting schedules, me meaning like someone who's running the company or running the school, that I set the schedules in a way where no, I encourage people to go pray, where I encourage people, where I give them a break, where so all of these things will come into yuqimuna salat, that muttaqi is someone who not only just prays, but they establish the salat, they push everyone towards salat, they invite everyone towards salat. They want a community, a society, an ummah that prays yuqimuna salat. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and they give um, from what we have provided them. So the point that we were talking about, that this Quran is a guidance. Yes, it is a guidance. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. But then it describes who are the muttaqin that this will become a guidance for. And then verse number 4, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ. And the people who, so again, continuing to describe the muttaqin, right? That they have iman, they have faith in what was sent down to you and what was sent down before you. وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. And the last one over here is وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. Right? You see in this verse that وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ. So they're talking about iman. They have iman in what? They have iman in what was sent down to you and what was sent down before you. But over here towards the end, a different verb is used. وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. But with regards to the hereafter, the akhirah, they have certainty about this. They have certainty about this. Am I a person who has certainty about it? Yes, because every time since I was a kid, every time someone asks me what usul ad-din are, I always tell them, qiyamat at the end, or ma'ad, or whichever word I used. I tell them, Tawheed, al-Nubuwwat, Imamat, Qiyamat. This is something that I've known since I'm a child. This is different. This is why this book is different. If in any other, whether it was the weekend school, whether it was any other competition, they ask me, what do you believe in? And I write down these 5 things and I get full points. But in the class of life, it's deeper than that. Does it reflect the signs? If I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if I believe in the hereafter, does it reflect in my life? If I truly believed in the hereafter, could I so easily continue living a life with so many shortcomings, with so many sins, and so on and so forth, right? So these are the things that we want to, inshallah, focus on. And then the last verse over here, which is verse number 5 from Surah Baqarah. So we read through verses 2 through 5. These are the people, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. These are the people who on the path of guidance from their Lord. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And these are the people who are successful. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, for the sake of this holy month, for the sake of this holy month, for the sake of this first night of the holy month, inshallah, give us the tawfiq to be able to understand Islam, to be able to practice Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month of special mercy that He blesses all of us and all of our marhumeen with this special mercy. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we beg Him, we plead to Him to make the suffering of our dear brothers and sisters in Gaza and in other places of the world easier, relieve them of their distress, and inshallah, as soon as possible. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our Imam and inshallah include us amongst his sincerest followers.